Friends, Indians, and countrymen, please lend me your ears. Today, let's discuss capacity to contract under the contract law. First, I'll go forward with the introduction. Then, I'll be explaining the nature of minors' agreement. Then, I'll be explaining the effect of minors' agreement. Then, beneficial contracts or beneficiary contracts. And what will happen if a minor contracts a marriage, and what happens if a minor contracts an apprenticeship. And I'll also discuss about incapacity of persons of unsound mind to be parties to a contract. In the various videos that I discussed regarding contract law, we can summarize that a valid contract is one which has a proper offer, acceptance, consideration which is lawful, object which is lawful, and competency of parties. That is, the age of the parties must be beyond the age of 18, and they should not be persons of unsound mind and other criteria under section 11 of Indian Contract Act. And the other essential of a valid contract is that the agreement must have not been expressly declared as void, such as agreements without consideration, agreements which are wagering in nature, and agreements which are against the public policy. Under Section 11 of Indian Contract Act, the various persons, that is, a minor, persons of unsound mind, and persons disqualified by law, all these are incompetent to become parties to a contract. The persons disqualified by law are insolvents. According to the Indian Majority Act, the age of majority is 18 years of age. Let me tell you, this section is only with respect to parties to a contract and not agents of contract. The principal is bound by the acts of the agents, and the agent is not personally liable. Let us suppose that A employs B, his nephew, in a shop. A wants to purchase goods from C. A uses B in the transaction, and B purchases the goods on behalf of A from C. If B fails to pay, then C has to procure the amount from A but not B, because B is an agent of A and he is moreover a minor. Let's now discuss the nature of minors agreement. Nowhere in the Indian Contract Act it has been stated that contracts with minor are void or voidable, like the contracts without consideration, contracts which are against public policy, and wagering contracts, where it has been explicitly stated that they are void. The ambiguity was solved in Mohiri Bibi versus D. Ghosh case, where it was held that the question whether the contract is void or voidable presupposes the existence of a contract within the meaning of the act, and thus a contract with an infant will not be considered to be valid and it is void ab initio. So, why do you think minors are restricted to be parties to a contract? The reason is that they are immature and are easily prone to manipulation. But today's generation is different. They are matured enough to understand the nature of contracts. So the laws have to change, and contracts with minor should be made voidable at the option of the parties to a contract. So a minor cannot obtain a decree for specific performance of a contract which was beneficiary in nature. For an illustration, let us suppose that a widow sold her property to the husband's brother, and in lieu of that, she stated that rupees 10,000 must be sent as maintenance to her son. The son here is the beneficiary to a contract. He can enforce the terms of contract if it is not obeyed by the husband's brother in future when he attains the age of 18. But he cannot sue before it. He can only sue to a legal guardian. In Srikakulam Subramanya versus Kura Subbareddy, here to pay off the dad's debt, a minor son and his mother sold a piece of land to the appellants. Later on, the son brought an action to recover the land from the appellants. Here it was held that the minor son could sue to recover the land because the agreement was void in nature and void ab initio, and also through his legal guardian and not in his own capacity. So it is clear that a minor cannot sue on his own but through his legal guardian. He can be a beneficiary to a contract but not a party to a contract. Let's now discuss the effect of minor's agreement. The first one is estoppel against minor. The illustration is, let us suppose that Sandeep wants to become a pilot, but he is a minor. He misrepresents before a recruitment agency by stating, I am a pilot and I have flown for 1500 hours. The agency, seeing his confidence, agrees and gives a remuneration of 20,000 rupees as agreed between both Sandeep and the agency. Later on the day of the first flight, they come to know that he is a minor. Here, they are stopped from moving against the minor as an agreement with the minor is void ab initio. The second one is no liability in tort as well as in contract. Let me illustrate. Tanya wants to purchase a cake for her birthday. She sees a baker with 5-star ratings and places the order. But on the day of the birthday, she says that she found a better baker and refuses to take the order and pay for it. Here, there is liability in contract as well as tort because there is negligence on part of Tanya as she wasted the baker's time as well as ingredients. The third one is the doctrine of restitution. Let me illustrate regarding restitution. Let us suppose that A wants to purchase goods from B for 100 rupees. B has given the goods to him, but A is now refusing to pay 100 rupees. Here, B can sue and recover that 100 rupees. This is nothing but restoration or the restitution. But let me tell you here, the minors cannot be forced to restore the benefits arising out of the contract. In Leslie versus Shell, the question whether a minor's contract can be taken as quasi-contract was addressed. It was held that minor's contract was void ab initio and minors cannot be considered to be quasi-contractees. A quasi-contract is nothing but a contract-like agreement. It will not have all the essentials of a valid agreement, but nevertheless, it will be focusing on majority of the essentials of a valid agreement. or a contract. There are various provisions under the Indian Contract Act which deal with quasi contract from section 65 to 75. Here, let me tell you that if the minor themselves are seeking for cancellation, then they have to restore back the benefits arising out of it or the contract. Let me illustrate. Let us suppose that A, who is the minor, and B, who is the mother, sell their land to their uncle X. X agrees to give a maintenance of 20,000 rupees every month. Here, X has been paying maintenance for more than 5 years now. A wants to recover the land from X. He brings an action through his mother. Here, it was held that contract with a minor was void ab initio and he was not allowed to restore the benefits. But out of morality, A can agree to take care of X during his last breath and take care of all the hospital bills or expenses. Let's discuss the beneficial contracts. The first one is contract of marriage. Under personal law, contracts of marriage, especially Mohammedan law, it is valid. The father gave the consent in place of the bride. But under the contract law, contracts of marriage between minors are void. Let me illustrate. Let us suppose that A is a girl who is a minor and B is a boy who agree mutually and in written that they would marry each other when she attains the age of 18. But A ends up marrying C. As terms of condition, they had agreed that if they don't adhere to the terms of agreement, the other failing party would pay 5,000 as compensation. B wants to recover this amount from A but failed to do so because this was a contract which was void in nature because it was a contract between a major and a minor. Next one is contracts of apprenticeship. Let us suppose that Ravi wants to go forward and learn the skills of manufacturing cars with Anil. Anil has been doing it since a lot of years. Here, Ravi can sue Anil if he doesn't teach the skill. But if Ravi quits midway, Anil cannot sue him as breach of contract because it was a contract which was beneficial in nature and it was a contract where a party was minor and contracts with a minor was void ab initio. A person will be considered to be of an unsound mind if at the time of forming of a contract he was incapable of forming a rational decision. For an illustration, let us suppose that a property was being sold for 25,000 but later on it was sold for 7,000 rupees by a lunatic or a person of unsound mind was held to be void ab initio because the person was incapable of understanding the transaction. That was what was held in Inder Singh versus P. Singh. Let us suppose that X, who is a drunkard, agrees to give his property for 500 rupees, but it was costing more than 5 crores rupees. Later on, after he becomes sober, he moves away from the terms of contract. This option is available to him, and he can state that the contract had to get rescinded as he had signed the contract when he was a drunkard and of unsound mind. I would like to conclude by stating that minors, persons of unsound mind, and persons disqualified by law, like insolvents and bankrupts, all these are parties who are not competent to contract. Do let me know in the comments who is a minor and what is unsoundness of mind. Thank you for listening to my lecture.